All right, all right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Cigars live stream. Let me wipe this down, see if that's better. How y'all doing? Welcome back to the show. We're here again on another Thursday night hang. Devin, how are you, man? Good to see you. How are things down in Florida? Hope things are well. We're here. It's kind of cold. Why is it so hazy in this on our screen? Looks kind of, we need to clean. Whoa. Still kind of hazy looking, huh? All right. Anyway, what's going on today? We're going to be doing some coffee and cigars, as always. Today's coffee is going to be a coffee that I got from Honduras. A friend of mine, Mary Portillo, gave this to me back a while ago from her family farm, a place called Finca y Gracia in Comayagua, Honduras. And a really nice coffee. We're going to do that in a French press today. And then our cigar for the evening is going to be the Garcia Garcia, which is a large Toro from My Father Cigar. Mom, man, good to see you, man. How are you doing, Brian? Always good to have you again. All right, so let's get rolling. The cigar itself is kind of on the larger size, so instead of like getting stuck here too long, let us pull out our brewing kit, which I have to find it. I've been changing the space around here a bit and putting stuff in different areas. And trying to find everything now is a little bit tricky. All right, let's get our brewing kit out. So how was your guys' Christmas? Mine was pretty good. Family came over. We were just hanging out, having a nice time. I can probably use this to help wipe the lens. Maybe this will help. That's a bit better. Oh yeah, that's better. That's better. We got our water here, water kettle. And we got, of course, our heater, stove. What's going on, Rusty? Evening, gents. Merry Christmas again. Yes, always Merry Christmas. Hope your Christmas was all good. Yeah, so my family here was, we all gathered here at the house and had a nice time, had some good food. What did we have? We had some tenderloin. My dad made tenderloin. What did I make? Did I make anything? I don't think I made anything. My brother made the mashed potatoes. My sister-in-law made stuffing. I don't think I made anything. Did I make anything? I made a mess. That's pretty much what I tend to make. So we had Filipino pancit, embutido, which is kind of like a force meat where you take pork or chicken and you make it into like a roll with eggs and Vienna sausage and some seasoning. Very, very one of the traditional Filipino foods. Tony's with us. What's going on, Tony, man? How are you doing? Evening to you. Okay, let's get this all situated here. I've been dealing with a lot of fire today. I don't know if you might have seen the live stream that I've had on Instagram Live today. We did a live stream on Instagram. Matt got a new roaster that we finally connected, got all the parts in to fire it up. So we fired it up, and when I say we fired up, I do mean we fired up because we lit the sucker on fire. Like the thing was on fire, burning down the house kind of thing. Scott's having a seizure. Oh, no, man. Can't do that. Can't do that. Scott's having a seizure. That's funny. That's funny. The toughest guy in the world is going to have a seizure. Come on now. Come on now. We'll angle out a little bit like that. How about that? All right. So we've got our... Okay, we got our water burning. I'm just going to turn it up. Thanks. So we're going to use the French press today because it's a little bit simple, a little bit easier. And then we've got the coffee here from Finca y Gracia. Put that in there. Really simple kind of way to do it. Not too much muss, not too much fuss, All right. We're going. So Anything happen interesting for your guys' Christmas? Do anything wild? Just waiting here now for it to heat up. So the Ravens have been having a good week. We won Saturday and yesterday, so that was always good to see. I don't know where that places us. Does that mean we're going to the postseason? All right, well, what's the boiling? Right home. Okay, here we go. Here we go. We've got good boiling. Mom says the Ravens are looking good. Ah, yes. Which one is up? Which one is up? Okay, okay. Okay, now we're going to do this. And now it's going to be super hot. So, let's wait a moment because it might be super hot. And one never knows if it gets too hot if it's going to actually cause cracking, especially with the weather being a little bit colder right now. Let's kind of, it's not totally cold, but it's kind of chilly in here. So we're going to let that bleed off the heat just a little bit. Okay. The lid back on because it tends to scald your hands. Just going to pour it on top, give it a good sloshing. All right. There we go. So what are you guys all smoking tonight? What's on your cigar menu? And where are you? Are you guys outside, inside, hanging out? Let me know. Interested to know. All right, there we go. Now we're gonna let that roll for another 2 minutes before we pour it out. Like I said, this is from a friend of mine, Mari. She, her family owns this, or maybe she owns this farm. I think this is her personal farm, in Comayagua, which is western Honduras, not terribly far from the cigar production area of Danlí. Danlí is on western Honduras as well. No, no, I'm sorry. It's eastern Honduras. Western is Copan and Copan Ruinas. East, it's all on eastern Honduras along the close to the Nicaraguan border. Tony's having a wise man, El Wednesday. Excellent, excellent, excellent. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. We've got had Christmas is over. I got some gifts. My cousin gave me a little tiny Spyderco knife, which was kind of cool. What else did I get? I got a T-shirt, awesome. Some chocolate, easy, perfect. That's about it. And then my nephew gave me a notebook, which was kind of cool. I was like, all right, that sounds good. Devin's with us here, and Devin says he's having a Monte Cristo, Monte C from Privada, and then on to the Tatuaje 20th anniversary. Ooh, yes. Let me know what you think of that. We're going to be doing the 20th anniversary Tatuaje next weekend. So, Devin, I remember you saying last week that you were having trouble getting that cigar. Is that right? So, where were you able to find one down there? I'm curious. I am curious. All right, we're almost there. A few more moments. We're going to be ready to pour out our coffee. I got the heater running, but it's still a little bit on the chilly side. Like, it wasn't terribly cold earlier today, but I feel like it's really kind of dropped and chill over the last couple hours. Okay, so press it down. And the nice thing, you just press it, and then we just pour. And this should give us, it gives us just about the right amount of coffee, 12 ounces, just to fill up our mug. Not bad. Let's see how it tastes. Devin says, I had to trek all the way to Lake Mary to find one, about a 30-minute drive. Wow. Lake Mary. I don't even know where that is. That's Central Florida? Is that right? Probably too hot to try. Yeah, it's still a little bit. It's not burning my tongue. Like it's cooled down a bit because especially since the thermal mug was pretty cool. So it's not, but it's still a little bit too hot to like really be discernible of all the flavors. All right, so let's move on to our cigar of the day, into our humidor, the official coffee and cigars humidor, and we've got our hopefully lovely My Father Garcia and Garcia. Like, it's interesting, like you see it says Garcia and the ampersand, right? Typically you see Garcia with the Y, so Garcia y Garcia, which the Y, the E in Spanish is the same meaning, but I think it's really and because they're using the ampersand. So I don't know, but it's a big, thick Toro that is 6 3/4 by 54, so Toro Extra, that was released actually in 2021 originally, and has an MSRP about $35. Now, this particular cigar, I can no longer remember if this is one that I picked up at Capital Cigar that I bought, or if it was gifted to me by George from one of our outings. I no longer can remember which one this is, but it is. Maybe he gave this one to me, and I bought the anniversary cigar that we had last week, or 2 weeks ago, which was truly an excellent cigar. Excellent cigar. And that's one thing we're going to do next week when we go into 2025. We're going to do a recap of all of the cigars for 2024 and find out which one is really the best one for 2024 and how it ranks up all in total. So let's get this out here. The Garcia Garcia. Devin says it's the northernmost part. People would say they are from Orlando. Ah, okay, okay. Gotcha. So since you're down in Orlando, do you do the things like get season passes to Disney? Is that part of your existence there? Like we went up to this past week, we went up to Hershey Park. I think I might have mentioned this last Thursday. Did we do that last Thursday? Yeah. We must have gone there before last Thursday, but it was because it was last Tuesday we went, and it was really quite. It was quite an epic trip. Okay, so here is the cigar, Garcia Garcia. Lighter on the wrapper. This wrapper is Ecuadorian Habano Rosado wrapper with Nicaraguan binder and Nicaraguan fillers that also include the Criollo 98 and the Pelo de Oro. So, like similar to the 20th anniversary that we had 2 weeks ago, this also has the Pelo de Oro as well as the Criollo 98 tobacco, making me wonder how will this compare to that cigar. That cigar was very well received, earning it earned 95 points. So Devin says, "Oh man, I avoid touristy things like the." Yeah, I do understand that. I do understand that. But every once in a while, I would think it's fun to go to Disney. So relative. So even though it says a Rosado wrapper, I think it looks fairly light, more like a Colorado wrapper, right? Like the regular, not quite like some of the Connecticut, maybe a little bit of the pink, the Rosado, but nice feeling, very smooth, almost not quite silky, but just smooth and really nice. There's a nice light tobacco aroma. Not terribly heavy, but not terribly spicy either. So just kind of a nice tobacco-ness, right? So, but it feels nice. It looks nice. It's a you can tell at least the way that it looks now, it suggests a really nicely constructed cigar that has pleasantly light aromas. And oh, I don't have a cutter. Okay. So now we got our cutter, and we're gonna cut. Hmm? Nice cut. Nice cut. Oh, and I need a ash. I forgot everything today. I also am in need of an ashtray. So I got the ashtray now. We're ready to go now. So let us get rolling. Okay, so do a little cold draw. The cold draw has a sweetness, a light sweetness that is very suggestive of apricots. That's very interesting. Let me just make some notes here on our sheet today. Lighter side wrapper. Fragrance is okay. Cold draw, nice. Very subtle, very subdued. A little bit of sweetness with apricots. Apricots, very interesting. I'm going to say 8 plus, 8.5. All right, let's light it up. So while we started off with the aroma and the fragrance being relatively light, there's actually a bit of spice on the light. I would say the light, the spiciness on the lighting, this first few puffs, is more interesting than the dry fragrance. Tony says the audience at Fader North is really finding it distracting. Really? All right. Okay. That. Better? Actually, what I think is kind of weird is this: the lighting in the back generally, I think, is a little bit bright. Oh, that's better. Yeah, these LEDs that I installed, they're very strong. Hmm. All right, good, 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 good. What I found last week, what I was thinking about last week when we were doing this, is that the the LEDs that I installed above the rack here, nice for like making it all like bright and stuff to work, but like it seems a bit too blown out. One of the problems that the smoke is starting to linger with the so I'm going to try to blow it around a little bit without having to open the door yet. All right, so now we got the cigar lit, and that initial spice that we had at the very beginning has given way to a little more light sweetness. Now, even though this cigar supposedly has similar tobaccos like the Criollo 98 as well as the Pelo de Oro from the 20th anniversary cigar, and it's got this really fancy label, I don't think it's starting off in the same manner as that 20th anniversary cigar. And it's probably not fair to compare the two. Like, yeah, I mean, like, even just on the fragrance and cold draw with the 20th anniversary, it was already starting off with gangbusters. Like, uh, the fragrance cold draw score that we gave for that was 9.5. So this is 8.5. So already there is a strong difference between the two cigars. I mean, it's pleasant enough right now, but not terribly tantalizing. Like, it's not like, ooh, this is really great. Like, I really want to get more into it. It's just good. It's good. Yeah, It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's solid. Like I want to say that had I not tried the other cigar, I wonder if I would like this better. But I don't really remember what the other cigar tastes like, other than what the notes I might have here, and other than the fact that I just remember anecdotally that was really great. But I don't feel the same level of enthusiasm for this one. It's just solid. Have you guys, anyone had this cigar yet? I'm interested to know if you've had it. What are your thoughts on it? And you know who we're missing? We're missing our cold weather friend, Mr. George Shim. Haven't seen him yet. So my friend Matt got this roaster a few weeks ago. This Royal Number 5, and Royal coffee roasters are really old school roasters, back from like and this particular one's like 100 years old. And the Number 5 roaster means that it holds 25 pounds of coffee. I don't know how the Number 5 became 25 pounds in this world, but it holds up to 25 pounds. So we put in some, he bought it from a guy that had refurbished it for a really great price. But the refurbished process wasn't like, it wasn't a restoration. It was just a refurbishment, right? Like it could have been, it should have been done a lot better. But it works, or at least now it works. So we had to get some parts to put. So we waited for some parts, some new valves for the gas line, and it's a very different roaster than what I'm used to. Like it's very old school. Like the burners are very like large orifice burners. When we first lit it, I was like, "Oh, is this even safe? Are we gonna blow ourselves up here?" But we were able to get it lit. And because it had sat around, after the refurbishment, there's a little bit of rust buildup on the inside because it's all cast iron. But this time, it's a perforated cast iron, so you can actually see through it you can see the fire, right? So it's going to give some kind of, I don't know if charring flavor is right, but it's a little bit of a different roasting than it is than a closed drum roaster that I'm used to. We fired it up and we had some coffee in there, some cheap Brazilian coffee. And the thing is, in order to get rid of that, we had this coffee in there for a couple weeks because we turned it for a few hours before to try to, just to try to act like an abrasive, like you're doing like a sanding, like you do with walnuts in a spray situation. So we were using coffee. We're going to use peanuts, but the problem with peanuts is that you can't get the allergen out of the roaster. And I was like, I even talked to some of the guys at Jeppy's Nut Company, right? I was like, hey, so, because they use very similar roasters, but they use a roaster to roast their peanuts. I said, doesn't the allergen burn off at the roasting temperature? They're like, no, it never burns off. I said, what? It's like, well, I didn't understand that. So I was able, so we went to just use green coffee, cheap green coffee, put it in there, ran it for a few hours, and it removed a little bit of the rust buildup. But today was the time we were going to really address that. And so what you normally do is you'll season the roaster by, it's basically like seasoning cast iron pans. You just kind of heat it up, get the oils in it, and like just basically polymerize the oils onto the metal. And since coffee does have a lot of oils, you just basically have to superheat the coffee way beyond what you would normally do. Like you heat it up really, really far, so you're driving the oils out of the coffee. And in turn, it kind of coats and chars the steel on the inside. Well, I don't know how much coffee we actually had in this roaster, but it wasn't a lot. It was enough, but it wasn't a lot, right? So when we turned the gas on, we hit it full blast and turned on the power, so the thing's spinning. And this thing is like It's loud, it's noisy, it's kind of crazy, and we're heating this up, and man, it is rocketing. Like it is rocketing. Like if you watch on Instagram Live, right? If you go to my channel on Instagram, you can see the video reaction or lighting it and firing it. And the progression, I didn't look at the timestamps, but I'm pretty sure it was way too fast for normal, right? But it starts to coffee when it's in its green state is endothermic, so it absorbs heat, and then eventually it reaches a point where it can no longer hold heat and becomes exothermic. And there's 2 points where it pops, and the popping of the and the exotherma and the exothermosity is expressed by popping of the beans, and that'll happen. It'll pop, and then it'll start to become endothermic again, and then pop again. And then that's typically the maximum that you're going to pop the thing. Roasters like to joke about the third crack, which is burning your coffee, which you never will get to. But this thing is cracking, and the coffee is very unevenly colored. It's really kind of out of control. So it reaches the point of turning really dark, and I'm like, oh, you could if you watch. I was watching part of the video. If you watch the video, you can see I'm a little bit concerned. I'm like, oh, we're kind of losing control of the roast at the moment. And it's like, okay, we gotta stop the flame. So we stop the flame because the coffee's already igniting. I can see inside the drum through the viewport, through the hole, that part of the coffee's on fire. So cut the power to it, like cut the heat. You don't want to cut the power. You want to keep it turning. So we're keeping it turning, but no more heat, no more application of heat. But it's too late. Like it's already absorbed so much heat that it's just rocketing and it's igniting. And you're like, whoa. And if you see this video, right, it's like the roaster itself is on fire. Like there is fire shooting out of this thing. And you're like, whoa, it's kind of crazy. But it's relative. So the thing is that it's relatively under control, meaning that there's no more flame, there's no more the flame being added to it. So it's just going to burn itself out. Now we just want to control how it burns. And so the door of the roaster is the hatch to the roaster is open. So it's getting fed air. And I'm like, we just need to we could just close it and let it die out. So we close it for a bit and let it run. And what that does, it's kind of like that's when the coating of the oils really start to happen. So we kind of let that run, but it's still burning. And I was like, let's get it out of the roaster because I don't want to get it too hot, right? So pop the door open, and all the coffee starts spilling out. And when it spills out, then because there's now greater combustion because it's more exposed to the air, like there's this little tiny inferno in front of the roaster. And when you do that, you got to make sure that your propane tank is kind of moved away, and any kind of combustible is not close by. So we had a little butane torch, had to move the propane away from it. I mean, I think that the likelihood of the little fire that was raging in front of the roaster generating enough heat to actually cause the tank to explode would be very light. I don't think that would happen. Like what might happen would be a series of unfortunate events where it would superheat the tank. The tank's gas pressure valve would break and release. So there's a pressure valve in the tank that would release if there's too much pressure so that the tank doesn't explode, which then releases the gas from the tank. But the problem with that would be if it was in this situation, the pressure valve breaks, the gas releases next to a big fire that ignites the whole thing and then causes an explosion, which would have been an unfortunate turn of events here. Yo, Tito's Barbecue is asking the best budget Maduro cigar. Oh, that's a good. I would say that one of the best budget Maduro cigars, in my estimation, would be the Lot 23 Maduro from Perdomo Cigars. I think that's a very well-rounded, low-budget, or pocket-friendly cigar from Perdomo. I don't know what do the guys think. What do you guys think, Tony and everybody? What do you guys think would be a nice Maduro cigar for someone? Rusty says that roaster looked like my mom's old Karma Mock drum roaster. That was the first one Rusty's had and what she learned. You know, I remember that roaster because when I met your mom the very first time in 2008, Miguel had sent me to go meet your mom. And she was like, go meet Lori and go see how she's roasting because I think she needs help with roasting. And so I was like, okay, I'll go over there and hang out with her. And she had this and that Carmack. I remember that roaster, and she was doing like 20-minute roast or some long roast. I was like, oh, 40-minute roast. I was like, oh, Tita, we need to like work on this timing here. And that's why I didn't tell her that, but I was because I had just met her, so I didn't want to say anything. But when I called Miguel after, I was like, Miguel, man, you need to go next time you go out there. You need to work with her on that. It's a little bit long. I think it's like 40 minutes. So, but of course, your mom is totally soared since that time. Mom says a lot of people watch that video. Yeah, the video that we did a video on. I did an Instagram live. I didn't see how many people watched that one. But Matt called me later because we did the second batch that we roasted on that roaster, which is actually a real roast, one that we were trying to actually make it proper. He was like, dude, there's over 8,000 views. I was like, what? 8,000 views? And then I went to look at it. It was almost 9,000 views at the time that I looked at. And I was like, it was like 8.9 thousand. I was like, whoa, it's crazy. I don't know who's watching it. But this is the power of I think that's part of the power of the YouTube shorts, right? So when you do YouTube lives and you do it vertically, it puts that feed onto the shorts feed. But if you do it horizontally like this is, it doesn't put it on the shorts feed at all. So I think that it gets a little more exposure on the shorts feed. But I'm always a little bit apprehensive about doing things like that because mainly it's like, I don't know, like it can help you grow subscribers to a certain extent, but not the view, the watch time that is in many respects kind of more important for a channel's viability. Like I hear this from other creators that have much larger channels. Like one of my friends, Hoon's one that tells me that he's got like 250,000 subscribers, but he gets a lot of the subscribers from the shorts that he does. But those people that watch shorts don't necessarily watch the long form videos, so you don't get the same watch time that you would if you were growing the channel without the heavy reliance on shorts. So it's an interesting. Devin says that the LFD number 5, the La Flor Dominicana number 5, comes to mind. I don't know if it's the best, but it's good. Yeah, and I don't know if we need. I don't know if Mr. Barbecue needs the best. He just wants to know like what's a good, friendly Maduro cigar, and I think that's a great suggestion. Although I don't know if the LFD, with the exception of the LFD that we had 2 weeks ago, I would just exercise caution if you're going to try the LFD and you've never had it before, because and talk to your tobacconist, because some of the LFDs are powerhouses. Like they are heavy, punch you in your face kind of cigars. So you might be sitting there and like smoking fine, and then suddenly after like 40 minutes, you're like, I'm going to go up and just step up. I'm just going to stand up, and then you're like, oh God, I feel crazy. So that's my only caveat to a LFD. Now, the LFD that we had, the 30th anniversary LFD that we had, was not like that. It was very, very tame, very, very mild, very, very wonderful, wonderfully balanced. But a lot of the ones, just be careful. Just be careful. So as we're progressing through the first third, it's very enjoyable. It's very good. Like I was saying, it was good earlier, but now I would say that the combination of flavors is very good. It's not terribly spicy, but it is a nice blend of pleasant tobacco notes. Now, I'm wondering if you guys have tried this, and I'm wondering if you guys have tried this because I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Because, like I noted during the 20th anniversary cigars, that I'm not naturally predisposed to liking my father's releases. Very much about the Tatuaje side of my father. But typically, my father releases, I'm not a big, they don't really groove with me as well. Now, the 20th anniversary grooved with me very, very well. But other My Father cigars don't really groove with me. And maybe this is somewhere between those two worlds, right? Tony says the Charter Oak Maduro from Foundation and the Perla Del Mar are both budget friendly. Okay, there we go. There's some great more. So there you go. 4 great suggestions right now. The what do we have? We got the Charter Oak, the Perla Del Mar, the Perdomo Lot 23, and the LFD number 5. And then Yotillo is asking your thoughts on the Camacho Triple Maduro. You know, the Triple Maduro is that the Ecuador one, the one that comes in the blue band? Because quite a few years ago, I was up at Cigars International at their warehouse in Bethlehem, PA. I was hanging out with the guys there. And they're like, hey, man, have you tried these Ecuador Camachos, the blue box, the Robusto? And I was like, no, they were really great. So, all right. He's like, they gave me like a half a box. And I was like, yeah, give it a try. Tell us your thing. All right. And I thought they were fantastic, like fantastic smokes. Really enjoyed them. I was smoking them whenever I could. I didn't buy a lot, but the black band, I don't know about the black band, but about a year ago or over a year ago, last summer of 2023, Brian, one of our guys, was like, man, have you tried that Camacho Blue Label? It sucks. And I was like, what? Come on, man. No way, man. That's a really enjoyable cigar. I was kind of defending it. And then we went on our sporting clays trip to Pennsylvania. And he was like, and I was like, all right, let me try one of those. These ones that you think are dog rockets. And I gotta say, man, it was a dog rocket. Like it was one of the worst I've ever had. Like I was smoking. So you know how big the bands are, right? The bands on those things are huge, like that. And let's say this was the entire length of the cigar. The band was like this. I did not eat. I was like, I'm gonna smoke it to the band at the very least. I could not smoke it to the band. It was so foul. And this was a cigar, a brand, a line of their cigar that I really liked. I don't know what changed, but God, it was god awful. But unfortunately, outside of that blue one, I have not tried any of the other. I don't think I've tried many of the other Camachos. Like ever since Tony, what was the name of the company that took over Camacho's line? Because there was a Camacho guy, but I think he sold it to Davidoff. Is that right? But now we got to ask you, Yotillo, because your name is Yotillo's Barbecue. So I'm Uncle Barbecue. What is going on with that? Like, or do you have a barbecue business? And where are you? Because that's fascinating. We like to fancy ourselves as barbecue, not aficionados, but at least barbecue enthusiasts. Tony says, yes, it was Davidoff. Okay, it was Davidoff. Yeah, I don't know what Davidoff does. Normally, Davidoff makes great cigars, but this one, they kind of like jumped the shark on. I don't know what happened or why. Ah, Yotil says, I have a big family, lots of nieces, nephews, and nieces. Okay, gotcha. But are you a barbecue master? Is that what it is too? Is that, or just that's just a fun name, which is fun too. No. Because when you have a name like Yotil, makes me wonder: are you barbecue or barbacoa? No discrimination here. We're equally opportunistic about barbacoa and barbecue. But I haven't had too much barbacoa. Like I want to explore more barbacoa. What I would like to do is, and actually my aunt was telling me yesterday, so my cousin, my aunt's daughter, last year moved to San Antonio. And she's always like, anytime you want to come down, come down. And I'm like, okay. The big Sporting Clays national event is in October. I'm gonna come down. I was gonna go this year. Then I was gonna go last year, wasn't able to go. This year I was gonna go, and then I couldn't go. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go next year. Then my aunt yesterday is like, your cousin, she's moving to Las Vegas. And I was like, Las Vegas? When? Like next month? Next month? Or April, maybe in April. April. I was like, Vegas? I want to go. I need a connection in San Antonio. I don't need Vegas. I was like, terrible. So I got a plan on a trip soon. Barbecue smoked meats. Ooh, very, very nice. Alistair is telling us that these check out the Sergeant from Luciano for a solid and inexpensive Maduro, under $3 stick from CP. CP, forgive me, I don't know what CP means. We there another five, a great choice of 5 cigars for you to try. The Sergeant from Luciano, which I'm actually not. I don't know if I'm too familiar. Oh, CP, the cigar page. Oh, that's the auction site. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly? Gotcha, gotcha. So this cigar is very enjoyable, very nice, very pleasant, not terribly challenging, but not disappointing, right? It's not, I'm not turned off by it. I'm actually enjoying it. It's kind of light. It's kind of like a little bit bright. So, yeah, not bad, not bad. So what are you guys having any smokes? Alistair, Yotil, are you guys having a cigar out here tonight? If you are, let me know what you're drinking, what you're smoking, if you're drinking anything with it, whether it's a non-alcoholic beverage like coffee or something a little bit more forceful. Oh, I see. I see. Alistair says that's Cigar Bid, the one that you can do like bidding on cigars. Cigar Page is owned by Oliva's parent company. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, interesting. Tony wants to know: have you tried Mama Rosa's? Yes, yes, many times, many times. But Mama Rosa's though. So if you're not familiar, Mama Rosa's is a Filipino restaurant in Middle River. They have 2 locations: one in Middle River, and one down on B&A Boulevard and Patapsco Avenue. I've not been to the one down in Patapsco Avenue, even though that's where I grew up. But the yeah, the Mama Rosa is perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Alistair smoking a Roma Craft La Maestranza. Ooh, I need to get some of those. I need to call Mike Rosales about that. Be like, hey man. And Yotillo's having the Alec Bradley Prensado. Oh, that's a nice one. I like that. I like that. Okay, we're getting here. Oh yeah, no worries. We understand. We got you. We got you. So I'm gonna say we're finished with the first third. Almost. Well, this is such a big cigar with such a big band. Maybe we're not yet in the second third. Yeah, maybe not yet second third. So we'll wait a little bit longer. But as we're cruising, I'm enjoying this more. So what is it? The Mama Rosa's, at least the one in Middle River, it's got a little grocery store in it, and it also has food. And you go there, and that kind of Filipino restaurant is what we would consider, what we would call a turo joint, right? Because they've got this hotline where they have these hotel pans that have all the different foods that are already pre-cooked, and they're just heated, steaming in the hotline. And turo restaurants in the Philippines are very popular because they're quick serve kind of places. And you go and turo means, turo, Turo means to point. So turo is point point. Filipinos like to do these double things, right? Turo and all this kind of, right? So basically you go there and I want this, I want this, I want that. And so that place is fair, it's pretty good. Like, and some things they will prepare to order. I don't remember what, it's been a while, but since it's in Middle River, I tend not to go. I mean, I don't get to go there that often. If I'm really feeling a craving for something, like for example, what I will tend to have a craving for is what we call lechon kawali. And lechon kawali is basically the pork belly that is roasted so it's crisp skin and chewy fattiness on the inside, right? So really delicious. You get that with a little bit of vinegar and salt and garlic, and my God, it's so good. Typically, when I'll go to Filipino restaurants, typically when I have a craving for that, and then with that, I can go to Towson and get that because that's available at a place called James Fiesta Grill, which is actually close to where Brian used to live. Like actually, it's like right down the street from Brian's old place, right off of Loch Raven Boulevard, right? Loch Raven, just south of Joppa, behind in a shopping center that's behind the 7-Eleven. So if you know where that 7-Eleven is on Loch Raven Boulevard, that's back in the very back of that shopping center that's behind the 7-Eleven is the James. And that, of course, and like most Filipino restaurants, they're very like down home, like very rustic kind of places. They're not like fancy joints. Like if you want fancy Filipino food, you've got to go to DC, and then you can get fancy, expensive Filipino food. So that's some suggestions. That's some. One of the viewers on my morning show, Busa Busa, was telling me that there are some Filipino joints in Gaithersburg that I should go check out. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting if I ever get down to Gaithersburg. I'm enjoying this more, I think. I was puffing on that this last like 3 or 4 or 5 puffs, maybe a little bit too hard, so I got to be careful. If I was enjoying it, then if I puff on it too hard, maybe it'll get too hot, and then I won't enjoy it as much. So who knows? Who knows? So this past week, I was looking for a planer, right? So I got a planer. I got a planer right behind me. There's this DeWalt planer right here, right? This big ass DeWalt planer. I found a guy advertising this planer. Oh, Alistair's asking, how is the draw? Actually, the draw has been beautiful, excellent. The draw, the burn, the construction has been excellent. I've just been trying to find the footing with the flavor, and I think it's starting to come alive now. But this planer, right? It's an interesting planer. Like, if you're not familiar with planer, planers that you use in woodworking to like make parallel surfaces on rough lumber, right? So you have to have a flat surface that you have to have a true flat surface that you put on the bottom as the reference point, and then you run it through, and it makes it a parallel surface to the top of it. Well, this thing, if you bought it new, is pretty, well, not pretty, I mean, it's pricey enough. Like you can get it, if it's on sale right now till the end of the year for like $600, but it normally costs like $800. Well, I found this dude and he's like selling it online for $450. And I was like, hey, would you take, and it's a 10-year-old machine. And you know, these guys are on Facebook, they're always like, used once or twice. I was like, used once or twice? This thing looks beat to hell. It looks for used once or twice. So I was like, hey man, what about 250? Would you take that? Would you consider 250? He's like, done. I was like, oh, really? Done? What? But he's all the way out past Frederick. So I drove out to Frederick. And there's this key on the top of it, this like Allen wrench that's supposed to come with it. And when I get there, he's really nice guy. And I said, do you happen to have the key? Do you have to have the key? And he's like, oh no, man, I don't know. That key was lost a long time ago. I'm sorry, I don't have that. He's like, let me just take off another $50. And I was like, oh, all right. So for $200, I got this planer. So I bring it home, I tear it apart. So I figure I'm going to tear it apart, inspect all the drivetrain, make sure everything's lubricated, clean it up because it's a little bit dirty, right? It's been sitting around for 10 years. It's got all this grime and dirt on it. So the case is kind of dirty. But once you clean the grime, the case is really clean. And then once you get into, when I tear it open, there's some dust, but the interior is super clean too. Like the blades have a little bit of like pine resin buildup, but nothing else. I mean, this thing really was probably only used a few times. Like it was really in excellent shape. But the interesting thing about this, right, is that if you use planers, they have this passive, most planers have a passive dust system, right? So it generates all this sawdust because it's shaving all this stuff off the wood. And you have to suck it out of the machines. And pretty much that's how everything works. Well, this particular thing has a fan built in that blows it out, which sounds like a great idea. And in many respects, it totally is a great idea until you actually want to use it in a controlled environment. Like DeWalt is really a construction kind of like line of products, right? So if you're at a job site planing like, I don't know, pine planks, and you're like at the job site, out at a new construction place, like you're at a development that's being constructed and you're planing these things, and the dust is blowing everywhere. No big deal because that's kind of what it's designed. Right? It's just designed to blow it out so that, and I get it because like you're taking it to a job site, and if you don't extract the dust, it will clog the machine and give you all kinds of problems. So this does it for you, which is fantastic until you have to control it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put it onto my cyclone collector that's on my shop vac, and that'll be fine. The problem is that these cyclones are all designed to be vacuum, right? So they're dealing with negative pressure. So if it's not fully sealed, no big deal because you're sucking it through, right? You're sucking it through the system. So any kind of gaps in the lids are just being pulled in, or if there's still gaps, it's just adding a little bit of extra air, just pulling it all in. Well, when you're going the other way and you're blowing it through the system, well, any kind of crack or fissure in your system is suddenly wildly exploited by this fan that is way powerful. And it's blowing dust and chips everywhere. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so I spent like a full day trying to tame this beast. And I think I was able to change, I was able to contain it. So I think I've got it settled. Had to buy a new like cyclonic connector, and then I had to modify some of the buckets. Like I have these buckets, right? These 5-gallon buckets, but the seals are terrible. So I had to go to the shop and get one of our coffee buckets that actually are food service grade, like designed to hold liquids. So they have a very hard locking positive seal on them that doesn't break. Like this thing was blowing the lids off of everything. Like the lids are flying off, the hoses are flying apart. You're like, God, this is crazy. But with this other system, it's all like super tight. So I'm like, okay, I think I got it. Now I just got to worry about filtration of like the micro particulates that are actually going to like kill me. Because I know I did it wrong because like for the last couple of nights, I've been feeling like, so, well, there it is. That's what I've been doing this past week. I've just been trying to figure this blowing system out. But I was finally able to get it to work. So I started planing everything. I have all this wood that I have. I've been harvesting pallets. And pallets are interesting because pallets, we just think of pallets, or at least I think of pallets as pine, right? Pine. Not really great quality pine either. But evidently, pallets are made from a variety of woods: oak, poplar, maple. So I've got a selection of these from harvesting these things. But they're all like rough zones. They're all kind of messed up. But when you plane them down, get maybe like quarter-inch sheets, quarter-inch boards out of them. So not tremendously large, but I think there'll be a way to work with them. But the problem is that you're at a 5-gallon bucket. And I've learned now that the 5-gallon bucket is not large enough. Like, I remember one session, I changed the bucket at least 6 times, maybe 7. And it was like every few minutes because it's just generating so much dust particulate. You're like, good Lord, this is just craziness. So I'm trying to design a system now that has a much larger containment while still being very compact. Like for me, everything's about compactness. I want to keep it compact so I can roll it around. So I think we can say that we're done with the first third. So I'm going to say, you know what? I got to say, my experience with this first third has gone from good to very good. Man, I want to say it's great. Like, I don't know if I want to say it's excellent, but I'm really starting to groove with it now. I'm gonna say very good, good plus. So 875. The body now has been very medium the entire time, very medium, but very high quality. I'm gonna say very good plus as well, 875. So we have 17, 8.5. Okay. So yeah, I'm saying 875 for flavor and 875 for the body. Because the body's not heavy. It's not a heavy cigar by any means. More of a medium cigar, but the quality of the body is very nice. Like it's super, super nice. Like I was saying earlier that I don't know if I have a hard time grooving with my father. And I was starting to wonder, like, am I going to have a hard time grooving with this? But I'm starting to feel more in the groove with this guy. It's getting a little bit warmer. I can take off my hat finally. And we have not reached too heavy smoke level in here yet that I have to open the door. Oh, well, let's see. I got a gift from my nephew. He got me this thing called, because evidently they noticed that I'm using my notebooks a lot more. So like, we'll get you this thing, the Rocket Book. I don't know if you heard about this. I had never heard about this till yesterday. But evidently, this Rocket Book is a notebook that is coated, right? So here's the book, and you open it up, and there's a little cloth here for cleaning. Because one thing about this is that you draw freehand on this notebook pages. I haven't really read about it enough to know, but here it is. It's kind of gridded. Oh no, the grids are really like light dots. It's hard to see in the lighting that we have here. And then there's a little QR code here at the bottom. Down here at the bottom. I think that has something to do. So you have a phone app, and you do all your drawing, and then you can take a photo of it, and it will save it and transcribe whatever you've written down. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, all the way around, but it gives you a lot of pages, so you can like work for a while and do your thing on it, then digitize it, and it will keep it. And then when you're finished and you don't want to use it anymore, you can just wipe it all off with this cloth, which is maybe some kind of smoother than um, smoother than microfiber. But so it looks pretty cool. Like it feels pretty cool. I'm a little bit torn though on it. Not torn, but I'm like it's just a new way of thinking on how to do what I've been doing, because I normally keep a big notebook or a few notebooks. But what I like about the notebook approach is that I have these notebooks, and it gives me a running history of the work that I've done. Right now, one of the things is that, of course, when you're writing things down on paper, it's much more. You don't necessarily have a way to catalog it. Like on my notebooks where I keep all the recipes that I've developed over the years, like I actually have to go physically, like every time I finish the book or a journal or somehow at some interval, I'll go through it and then transcribe the details from each recipe by date and put it into a spreadsheet. So if I need to look up something later and reference it, I can easily find it. And then I have to label all the books by certain designations so that I can find them, right? But I'm interested to see how it's going to work out, because I think it might be great. Because if you're working with other people, it could be an easy way to send your notes or whatever your drawings to other parties so that they have a better understanding of what you're doing. I don't know if you are familiar with this Rocket Book, but if you are and you've used it, I'd be interested to know what you think about it and how it has impacted or improved your workflow. Oh no, the ash is spilled. But I think I'm definitely grooving with the cigar now. It's not. It's got a really nice light kind of flavor to it. It's kind of lightly sweet, not sweet, but like a sweet tobacco-ness to it that has become very pleasurable. Oh yeah, very nice, very nice. So who's playing tonight? I'm sure there's a Thursday night football game, right? Who's playing? And oh, I see. Here we go. Seattle Seahawks versus the Chicago Bears. Second quarter with 6.5 minutes remaining. 3-0 in favor of the Seahawks. Oh, all right. Are the Bears the team that plays at Soldier Field? Do you know this? Is that right? I think that's a pretty cool looking stadium. When you drive by it on Lakeshore Drive, it's there on the right. When you're heading north, you're like, oh, that's kind of a cool looking stadium. It's all like columns, really like Roman architecture. Yeah, this has been surprisingly good. I think maybe what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pop this door open, the blast door, and blow out some of the smoke that's starting to build up now. Oh yeah, definitely. Because like when I stepped over to hit the button, yeah, the smoke's pretty heavy in here. I was like, oh, it is pretty heavy. So this will give some chance for the smoke to get out of here, give us some more freshness. So what else been going on in the world? What was it? There was a shoot down, right? One of that Azerbaijani plane got shot down in Kazakhstan, right? Yeah, Azerbaijan Airlines. Aviation and Associated Press says the aviation experts say that Russia's air defense fire likely caused the Azerbaijani plane to crash. And I don't know if you saw any video of that, but man, this one guy that I was reading, this guy on YouTube, Blanco Lirio, he's a aviation guy, and he was talking about, he was showing photos of how there are shrapnel holes on the tail end of the Embraer 190 that the plane was. 38 people were killed, and he was saying that looks like some kind of surface-to-air missile that actually flies close to the aircraft and then explodes, that blows the shrapnel into the plane and causes, catastrophic damage. I was like, well, man, what a horrible, horrible way to go. Like, I didn't think that, I mean, I don't know what caused it, but I didn't think that Russia and Azerbaijan had any like real issues. Also, NPR says that Israel has struck Houthi targets in the Yemeni capital, which to me doesn't really make too much sense. Like, I have actually been under, I believe, Houthi attack, missile attack. Like when I was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, a couple years ago, we were driving around, and my friend, he was like, he was driving. He's like, "Look, missiles." I was like, "What?" They're shooting at us. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And yeah, there's like, he's like, yeah, because Yemen and Saudi Arabia are having some kind of war, right? They're kind of war, and so Houthi rebels in Yemen are kind of pissed off at Saudi Arabia, so they're trying to shoot missiles from Yemen into Saudi Arabia to hit the oil depots, especially the ones in Jeddah, because Jeddah is on the western coast of Saudi Arabia and it's a port city. So they want to, affect the exportation of Saudi Arabian oil so that, it hurts their economy. But he was like, my friend was like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I was like, well, it's not a big deal, dude. They're shooting missiles. Like, you could see the missiles flying. Like, I was like, holy God, that's crazy. He said, don't worry about it. They never hit anything. Like, they're really bad at hitting targets because they don't have the greatest tracking system. So I was like, so and when I see things like this, like Yemen strikes at Houthi targets, like, why? What are you worried about? They're not hitting anything. So a little bit crazy there, a little bit crazy there. Hmm. And- Oh, Angela Thompson says, I just smoked an Ambrosia Van Reef. Oh, nice. It tasted like someone left a box press Oliva G or Master Blends 3 in a bowl of potpourri for a few weeks. Not horrible, just unexpected. Oh, I wonder if that's like if it's like those, how Drew Estate makes those infused cigars, the acid cigars. I wonder if they follow something along that line. That's quite interesting. I've not heard about the Ambrosia. Interesting. Where did you get that, by the way? Another thing that I saw on the news was that evidently there was a body that was found in the I think the wheel well of a plane that flew to Hawaii. Like somebody was like wanted to go to Hawaii so badly, didn't want to pay the airfare, so found a way to stow himself inside the wheel well, which is a terrible, terrible idea. Like, let's say the fact that you could survive at 35,000 feet. Let's forget the question of like the air quality, right? The air quality which you can't breathe at that point. Like you can't, like people survive at 29,000 feet, like at Everest, but they take months to get to that point of like acclimating. So you can't just go from sea level or like regular and go to that level and like survive. But let's say you could. It's like 50 below at altitude. Like it's super cold. Like you could see, I see it on flights. You can see a little bit of frost developing on the windows. You're like, okay, you can't survive that. Like that sounds like a horrible, horrible way to go. Just horrible. Angela says, I love the leather rose by Joyce. Oh, I've not tried that either. I think I might have to explore some of these. Tony says, Angela, have you had the girl with no name yet? And if so, what kind of flavor is it? Angela says that the Ambrosia was the last cigar in a dusty box. Oh my! I like the box, so I got the cigar. Did they let you keep the box? I hope they did. Reputable shop should let you have the box with the last cigar in it. Well, I don't know why cigar shops want to like sell you the box separately. Like I imagine the markup on the cigars selling them individually should be enough to cover the cost of the box itself. I don't know. We could turn to our resident tobacconist. Tony, what do you say about that? I don't know if you follow this, but so remember there was a couple astronauts that flew up on the Boeing spacecraft to the ISS. Supposed to be there like 2 weeks, and then they were there for like longer, and then they couldn't guarantee their safety on the return flight of the Boeing spacecraft, so they flew it back remotely, and they made it all right, so they would have survived. But the chances of them getting killed would be a horrible, horrible thing, especially for the space program for Boeing. And Musk was supposed to send his spacecraft up there to get them home by February. Evidently, there's more delays, so they will not be coming home for maybe another month or two. Like maybe they'll get back by April. Like, my God, man. Can you imagine that? Like you're just planning, I'm gonna go to space for 2 weeks, I'll be back. And then you don't come back for like a year. I mean, it's kind of like what happened to people during COVID. Like, I'm gonna go vacationing, I'll be back in 2 weeks. And then COVID came, and then they're there for like 2 years. It's terrible. Tony says we don't sell ours, so I always laugh when I see them for sale. Yeah, that's what I think. It's like you're making a good markup on that. Why would you bother with that? Angela says that the girl with no name was not as sweet as the leather rose or even the sweet Jane. The girl with no name had a little light white pepper on the retro, more so than any other Cuban sandwich I've tried. Oh, all right. That sounds fairly pleasant. Oh, another thing that I saw today was what is it? A steelworkers union. Evidently there's a steelworkers union where the president of the union was like, back in November, was like, we're voting for Trump. We're going to support Trump. Trump's our man. All right, cool. I thought that was kind of, as a union member myself for the last 30 plus years, I think that's kind of an odd thing, a union supporting a Republican president that only wants to like take away the jobs. But whatever, that's to their power, right? So evidently he's been on the news again now where he's like, where Trump has said something about he's going to shut down the steel industry, that American steel sucks and we need to get rid of it. And now this president is all mad. He's all like, well, we need to have a discussion. I was like, you need to have a discussion. Don't we look at the history of this nation and look at like what happens to unions? Starting like with Reagan. Like Reagan was the guy that really started breaking up unions. He was the one that was out there, fired all of the air traffic controllers, and then it was him and his guy Donald Regan that were telling the CEOs back in the 80s, move your production to China, build factories in China. And CEOs back then were like, well, what about the cost of transportation? We got to bring the parts around the world. That's not a good thing, right? That's going to cost us a lot of money. And then they were like, but Donald Reagan was like, look, if you build the factories in China, now you don't have to deal with all these regulations that factories have to deal with in the United States, like environmental regulations, OSHA regulations, everything, right? And you don't have to deal with the wage structure of the United States. So you can start manufacturing things much cheaper, which will offset the cost of transportation. And so that's what happened. And it's like, did you not? And I was thinking of the steelworker guys, like, did you not pay attention to that history of your own industry where like we had Bethlehem Steel in Baltimore and that wiped out Bethlehem Steel. It's like, I don't know, very odd, very odd. Angela says, my husband and I went to Drew Estate event at our local lounge. Nice. We are trying to get them to make a 4x32 version of the leather rose like they did with the Sweet Jane. They made the baby jeans. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. 4x32, that's a nice size. I remember I smoked the cigar that I remember smoking of that size was something that Rocky Patel released. I don't know if they still do this release, but they call it the Mareva, which is the little tiny petite Corona that they sell, that they made for the World Smoking Championships. And the idea is you take this tiny cigar, and whoever smokes it the longest without it going out is the champion. And they have national champions that go to the World Championships in Switzerland, and they all compete. And evidently, one guy made the world champion this one year, like 2020. made the, or maybe it was like 2019. He got his cigar to last like I think 6 hours. I was like, wow, that is incredible. We already have a name. Leather Roads Buds. Oh, no. I like it. I like it a lot. I like that a lot. Mm. And evidently, we're going to have a shutdown of the government, right? The government, evidently, they can't agree on, Republicans can't agree on whatever programs to shut down or to keep the government running. Something like that. I haven't really paid attention. I've just been seeing blurbs every once in a while. Devin says, those who do not study history are doomed. It is so true, man. It is so true. And you think that guys that are like running unions, of union presidents that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year are paying attention, are a little bit more smarter about that. But I guess not, because like in my union, which is the IATSE, the International Alliance of Stage and Theatrical Employees and Motion Picture Machine Operators of the United States and Canada, and Allied Crafts, AFL-CIO. Like when 4 years ago, we were up for renewal with the contract with the Producers Guild. And, well, not the Producers Guild, but the MPTP, the Motion Pictures Television Producers of America. And they're the ones who negotiate all contracts. And so for the very first time in the history of my union, over 100 years old, the membership, they actually had a strike vote, and 96% of the membership said yes to strike. It was unprecedented. They've never had this kind of support for a strike ever. The moment they got the strike authorization, the leadership of the union capitulated to the producers. They like compromised and gave it all away. And we're like, well, what the hell happened here? What about this solidarity in trade union do you not understand? But these are the guys making $400,000 a year. They're more attuned to studio execs than they are to their own membership. So it's not surprising that this guy that runs the Steelworkers Union would be out of touch with his own people. Angela says, quoting Mark Twain, that if the voting mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. Yeah, that's why we have what do we call this? We call this a representative democracy. Is that right? Tony says, Angela, they did release the 4x43 Petite Corona version of the Leather Rose. That's a good set. Ah, okay. I guess they want a 32, right? Angela says, the Petite Corona is my favorite. I just want a quicker smoke with the same, oh, there's always a nice thing. Like sometimes you just want to have like those, what are those, the Papa Frita size kind of cigars? Sometimes you just want something really quick and short. I don't do too much of the aromatic cigars. So when I really want some taste of tobacco for really short smokes, then I usually turn to those little minis that they make. Those can be kind of fun, but they don't have the aromatic flavors, so that's not terribly conducive to that. Angela says, I think we are a democratic republic of sorts. That's the key word, of sorts. Yeah, I do think this is right now. Okay, so we are moving out of the second third and into the third third. So I really have enjoyed this. I'm going to say that we've reached the point of excellence for the flavor. I'm going to say that the body has been very similar, very static. So I think 17.75, 25, 5, 17, 7, 5. Okay, so there it is. I'm going to say a 9. Excellent for that. Angela says, my husband's top two are the 33 Oaks by GTO. What's GTO? And the McAuliffe Torcedores. Ooh. Both are cigars I've not tried. I have had McAuliffe's, but I don't think I've had the Torcedores. McAuliffe's are very nice. I think they're very nice cigars. This one, getting a little more interesting as we move into the third. I wonder how our football game is going today. Oh, Chicago Bears have gotten a field goal. Now it's 3-3 to the both of them, and we're running in the last minute of the second quarter. That's good for Chicago fans. So, Angela, when you're smoking, like if you're smoking tonight, where are you smoking? Are you outside? Are you in a part of the country that is relatively warm, or are you like the rest, some of us here that are in chilly parts? Like right now, the door's open and it's starting to get pretty cold. I'd like to tell you I've been keeping up with some of the shows, but I haven't seen anything. I have not been watching anything the last couple weeks just because I haven't had the time. Evidently, there's been a couple movies that came out. The one, what's it called? There's one, Krampus, something by Marvel. Evidently, there's a Marvel movie that came out that evidently has tanked horrifically. Like I was reading about that the other day. I was like, oh wow, that's really terrible. I don't even know about this. Never even heard about it. And people over the last like year or two have been talking about Marvel, and they're like, Marvel's losing its luster, right? It used to be gangbusters, where now it's not doing so well. And I think because maybe they're moving to an era of Marvel MCU stuff where they're kind of becoming like the DC world, right? Like, I think one of the problems with DC is they didn't spend the time to do the world building. Like, I think with the MCU early on, like in 2000, starting in 2008, they started doing their world building, right? Slowly building up with the Iron Man. They got Robert Downey Jr., who's a very likable person. He played Tony Stark in a very likable fashion. So they built all this world before they ever got to the Avengers. And I don't know I think that maybe Marvel has gotten to the point where they think they've done enough world building, and now that they've reset their world, they don't have to build that again. And I think maybe that's part of their issue. Angela says about 2/3 southeast of Charlotte, North Carolina. Ah, okay. We smoke inside, but I only smoke once a week or so. Oh, that's nice. Now, I'm curious, when you say you smoke inside, 2/3 of a Toro southwest of Charlotte. So if you're driving southwest from Charlotte, you'll drive about 2/3 of the way through a Toro before you get to your house. Am I understanding that correctly? But I'm curious, if you're smoking inside, how do you manage the smoke in your house? One of our friends, Andrew, lives in Washington, D.C. He's got this house, 1920s era house. So we were there. We've had dinner there a couple of times. And every time he has a dinner party, I'm always like, I'm excited to go, because his 1929 house has a fireplace in the living room. And if you open enough ventilation through the window, this fireplace, when it's burning a fire, will suck all of the smoke out of the living room. And it's really I was like, wow, this is really impressive. Like, we struggle with that up here, with trying to figure out how to get smoke abatement and smoke relief. Oh, correct. That's a great way to like put it. Although I think it probably depends on how fast you smoke. Like sometimes I feel like I smoke very fast, so it might take me an entire Toro to get to your house rather than just 2/3. And Alistair was saying he was smoking Roma. Man, I haven't had a Roma in a while. Like I've kind of plowed through all my Romas, and so I'm kind of out. And I haven't seen any of the Intemperance Revenges around lately, so I need to like start looking. So it's a little bit stronger. Like the body is a little bit stronger, but it's not heavy. There's definitely been a change. It's definitely it has actually been a relatively dynamic cigar. And interesting that when it started, I wasn't terribly blown away by it. It was relatively mild and relatively, relatively enjoyable. But it was kind of like, and then as we got to the second, third, and now we're progressing into the third, it has been very dynamic. It has changed quite a bit. It has been very interesting of a cigar. And it's a fairly big cigar too, right? This is 6 and 3/4 by 54. So we're about an hour and a half into the show, and so I think this will probably last through the end of it. So it's kind of good. I didn't dilly-dally to get to the lighting. I think it's getting a little bit chilly now. I'm going to close the blast doors. All right. Oh no, it's reopening. I don't know what it is, but sometimes when I close the door, it gets all the way down and then it reopens, and then I have to go back and close it. Like there's something blocking it, but there's nothing there. So like I said, when I did this whole thing, this whole planer thing, 5-gallon buckets are too small. So I'm trying to work with this 20-gallon trash can. But I'm going to go tomorrow and look at this larger trash can that's 32 gallons. And it's only like 3 inches taller. So the key for me is I want to fit it underneath a work top. And I think that even at 27 inches, it's 27.5 inches, that 32-gallon. I think that'll still be all right because the surface of the workbenches are 36 inches. And the planer's bed, like I want to have the planer's bed at the same level as the workbench so you can kind of like outfeed up for it. So I think there's a way to do that, maybe. Actually, I have to work on those calculations because the wheels are 88 millimeters, so that's about 3.5 inches. Then there's 1/4 inch, 3/4 inch, so 1.5 inches of like the surfaces. And then it's 70 millimeters to the bed of the planer, which is about 3 inches as well. Oh, maybe there's not any space. Maybe it's just going to have to be. So I was talking to a friend of mine not too long ago. Well, okay, so this actually goes back a few years. So about 5 years ago, some of my customers from who are food scientists for McCormick Corporation. They would come in, we'd be talking about all kinds of things, and they were telling me about some of the issues we may be facing as a species on this planet about arable land and production of food. Like they were saying that they're projecting within the next 50 years that the spice industry will undergo seismic changes because as we continue to experience population explosion, we're going to have a little more troubles with sustenance production, right? So, meaning that, like, evidently they were telling me that arable land for the planet is good for roughly 5 billion people. At the time we were having this conversation, the population of the planet was at 7. So as we move closer to 10 billion people, arable production will be, arable land production will have to change from things like spices to more protein production, right? To sustain the population. Which means that spices will eventually become more of a luxury item for only people that can really afford spices. Which means that, you know, offspring, the children of our offspring, will face a whole different reality of food. When I was talking to another guy recently, another friend of mine who's also involved in food chain production, and he was like, "No, I don't think that's going to happen." I was like, "Oh no, why do you think that?" He's like, "Because what we need to do is," he was talking about, like, we can move, if we can move away from industrial agriculture. Like right now, there's this whole system of industrial agriculture. Like, for example, let's say you have a farmer and he's buying his seeds from ConAgra. The seeds that he's buying from ConAgra have been engineered to only do so much production per year, but also to not be, I forgot the name of the term, but basically, like, you could take the idea with food is you take the food, you harvest the seeds from what you're producing, and then you replant them, and then you can grow. But these engineered seeds are only good for one life cycle. So you always have to, so it forces the farmers to always have to buy seed so that there's always a continual customer for industrial ag companies. These seeds are also designed in a way that instead of having one application of fertilizer per year, they require like 8 or more applications of fertilizer, which means that there's a constant stream of revenue for industrial ag. But if you look at, he was talking about, he does some work with a farm down in Virginia called Polyface, and it's a company, it's a farm that I've heard about many years ago. Polyface is this interesting operation in Virginia that is really trying to push the whole locally grown movement. And one of my friends who runs Woodbury Kitchen here in Baltimore was always about locally grown foods, and my concern was always like, okay, locally grown food is a great idea, but my concern was like, can we move to local food production so that we're not transporting food across the country, but everything's being produced more locally, so transportation costs are reduced. But my concern is that can the land be cultivated to be plentiful enough to support the population? Because if you think about America, right? America right now, 330 million people, maybe closer to 350 by now, right? If everybody eats 3 meals a day, that's nearly 1 billion meals per day in this country alone. I mean, if you think about it, that is a staggering amount of food that has to be produced on a daily basis. How is that even possible without industrial ag? And evidently, my friend was like, yeah, it is possible. There is a way. These guys are trying to prove that you can produce, because you can get production on, let's say, 1 acre of land can be very plentiful to feed a local population. So I don't know. To me, it's a very interesting topic because you know, as a society, I think we're beholden to industrial ag, and if we can break that cycle, I think it'd be better for the population, better quality foods, better all the way around. Because one of the issues I think is that the quality of food isn't that great. One of our friends was telling us that his family does ag production in the West. I think it was lettuce. He was saying that, and even my friend was talking about this, that we farm our arable land so heavily for industrial ag that the land itself, the soil itself, is fallow. The only way to get the produce to grow in these lands is by heavy fertilization, so that it will grow, because there's nothing left. The soil is depleted. My friend says that if we follow different practices, that soil can regenerate itself within 3 to 5 years. And then my other friend was telling us at one point that the only nutrients that are present in the lettuce that they were producing was only there because they added that to the plants during the growth period. And I was like, holy crap, that's crazy. Like, we think about like vegetables being very full of like, minerals and, the things we need, when it's not, because it's already, there's nothing left in the soil. So we're just putting in very minimal amounts of nutrients. So we're actually, in some respects, the populace is starving without actually knowing it. We're eating more volume of food, but starving nonetheless. Steven's with us. What's going on, Steven, man? How are you doing? How are things out there in Phoenix? And how's the weather out there? We're probably about 30 degrees or so out here. So interesting. And just things, these are things that I read about. I'm just kind of fascinated or talk to people about, just kind of interested. I don't, I personally do not have any solutions because I'm not that well educated. Because one of the topics they were asking me is like, as climate change and global warming happens, how does that affect the coffee chain? And from based on what I've talked to my producers about this, one of the issues with, like, let's say coffee production is that quality coffee production is done at higher elevations, right, on mountains. And there's a range of altitude where coffee grows best. Global warming happens, and that means that you have to go further up the mountain to get to those ideal climate regions, right? Problem is that you're on a mountain, and a mountain is like this, right? So the farther up the mountain you go, the smaller the land becomes. So my concern is, at least in the coffee side of things, is that as that does happen, if that should actually be the case, then coffee production will get smaller and smaller because there's just less land available, which will drive the price up more. Which the problem is, I think that we're not paying enough attention to the future, right? We're so focused on the capitalism, profitability of a corporation, rather than the feasibility of the populace. We're coming along to the end, really kind of crispy, like really interesting flavor. It's not getting heavy, but it's getting a little bit more, maybe complex, a little bit more interesting. So, Steven, what are you smoking out there tonight? Anything good? some of the guys went to go shooting today. They called me up. They're like, "Hey man, you want to come shooting with us? We're going to do some sporting clays." I was like, "Oh yeah, man." I was thinking about it. I was like, "Oh, that sounds really great." And I was like, I really wanted to go, but then like I just had so many things to do today, like set the coffee on fire that I just couldn't break away. I was like, "Oh man, I really wanted to break away and go out and blow things up." Instead, we burn things down. Devin says that regenerative practices are catching on, but really it's the fight against current capitalism. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. I don't know how it's possible. I mean, I think I don't know how it's possible to break that cycle, right? Like without having some sort of cataclysmic event, like to the level of like pandemic kind of thing, right? Like one of the interesting things about like the pandemic we had a couple of years ago was that like with healthcare, right? We battle about healthcare all the time. Like healthcare costs too much. Healthcare is all this, but one of the things that I thought was really unique and interesting about the pandemic was that we went from a place where where healthcare is pay to play, where suddenly now with the pandemic, in order to control it, suddenly you could get medical attention in the form of like the vaccine, not the vaccines, but the all the treatment, testing, and all that for free. The government covered it. Which in many respects is, depending on the pundit you're talking to, that was the socialized healthcare, right? Socialized medicine that we are so fearful of, right? Steven's having the HVC Cero. Ooh, how is that smoking up for you? Good or not so good? Alistair says he loves the HVCs. Yeah, I like the HVCs. So, Alistair, where are you coming to us from? What part of the country or world are you in? And how's your cigar coming along? We're getting down to the wire here. It's getting a little bit, it's changing again. Maybe there's been a little bit of introduction of a little bit of harshness. Fort Wayne, Fort Wayne, nice, nice. So, are you a fan of the tenderloin, the Hoosier tenderloin? For me, Hoosier tenderloin is a relatively new discovery. I was in Chicago the end of last year or the end of 2022, I think, for New Year's because I needed miles. Oh, it was end of 2022 into 2023. I needed miles for my status with United, so I flew to Chicago for. I needed to have one flight. So I flew to Chicago and I was going to come back before the end of the year. I had to complete it before the end of the year. And then I decided to stay over the new year because I was like, well, if I fly back, so if I do the round trip from Baltimore to Chicago, then I'll have two flights. But I only need one to qualify for my status. And if I flew back before the beginning of the year, then I would just have an extra flight. But if I flew after the beginning of the year, then I would have another flight that would credit towards 2023. So I did that, and at that time I was like, I want to go visit a couple places. I wanted to go to a place called Sweetwater Sound down in Fort Wayne. So I was like, okay, I'm going to drive down. So I drove down to Fort Wayne, stayed at one of the Hilton properties, and then went to Sweetwater, which I don't know if you've been there, but man, if you like music stores, this place is out of control. Like I buy stuff from them online, but I wanted to go down there and meet my representative there and just see what they have. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's craziness. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Just put the Roma out. It was great. Awesome. Awesome. And Alistair says, I'm a spice guy. So that golden line was outstanding. Ooh, very nice. And then there's this guy on YouTube that I follow. He does these like early American lifestyle recreations. There's all these videos about like, life in colonial times. He's got his own like compound, a place called Townsend's, just outside of Fort Wayne. So I wanted to go visit him. So I went to go visit him as well. I went to their shop, and picked up some stuff there. Really kind of fun. Really good trip. A good trip to Fort Wayne. I was like, oh, nice. And now that I've gotten into this Festool thing, Festool evidently is based outside of Indianapolis. I'm like, ooh, I need to go down there and visit Festool and have more tenderloin. So the tenderloin thing, right? So if you guys are not familiar, tenderloin, Hoosier tenderloin is, I think it's a German thing, right? Because it's basically American style schnitzel, but not the deer heart schnitzel, but pork schnitzel. So pounded pork cutlets that are breaded and then deep fried and typically served on a bun or some kind of bread, like a roll, that has a lot of pickles and I think onions. And evidently, if you go to indianafoodways.com, which is that kind of like food organization, they have something called the Tenderloin Trail. And they've mapped out all these places that make the best tenderloin across the state. And I found this one in this small town somewhere between Fort Wayne and Chicago, but kind of south. Like if you took the highway to like from Fort Wayne to what's the town that the Jacksons are from that to that town, you would pass it. You have to go south into the countryside. So I did that. And I tried went to this little tiny restaurant in the middle of kind of nowhere. And I was like, it was delicious. I was like, this is amazing. Like it is huge. And it's not like a cutlet that you have like imagine like a Kaiser roll, right? You think, okay, I'm going to put a cutlet on a Kaiser roll. It's going to be something small like this. But this cutlet was like 4 times the size of the Kaiser roll. It was like, I was like, with French fries, I was like, God, this is some good eating. And Tony, you would like this place because this one restaurant that I went to, they were not a Coke house. They were a Pepsi house. They were like all Pepsi. I was like, oh man, Pepsi. It's terrible. But I was like, I tried it anyway. I was like, all right. Oh, Alistair says I play guitar, piano, and drums. Oh, so you totally know Sweetwater. Like I was so like, as far as music stores, like here in Baltimore, we have like guitar centers, which are pretty sizable, some of them. But Sweetwater was like out of control. I was like, this place is out of control. Like, I got to tour the studios too, so I got to see like their Dolby Atmos studio where they do. So Dolby Atmos, I don't know if you're familiar with, but Dolby Atmos is this new thing. Like, there's surround sound from Dolby. Well, Dolby has this thing called Atmos, where it's an unlimited amount of speakers, right? Like, you can put 30 speakers around you and it's designed so that the sound will move wherever you want to assign it. Like it's wild. Like they were showing me like how they do it, and I was like, holy moly, this is craziness. Like this is awesome. I mean, it's really something they designed more for motion picture playback, like at theaters, but you have to master it somewhere. But you set it, and you could set it up with like 5 speakers, or you can do 30, or anywhere in between. Just really cool. Oh, Gary, yeah, Gary, thank you very much, Gary. Like the day that I drove down from Chicago was like super, like it was snowing and it was all like foggy. I was like, man, this is craziness. Like it was a good time. It was a good time. I had a great time. Never thought I would actually say that. I had a great time in Indiana. I was like, oh, this is a great time. And now I want to go back because Festool was there. I'm like, I need to go back and check it out. Because here, when you're from Baltimore, you have a natural disposition to hate Indiana. Well, more specifically, Indianapolis, right? Because they stole our Colts. So we have a natural hatred for them. It's not as much hatred as you have for like Pittsburgh, right? And the Steelers, but it's there. It's there. It's especially if you're of a certain age. But yeah, Indiana was cool. I was like, this is cool. This is cool. I kind of wanted to do some dancing, right? Like go to the Baptist town and do some dancing there, like they did, like Kevin Bacon did in Footloose. Ugh. Like I said, it was getting a little bit harsh, but it's still very, very enjoyable. Like this is hella good. I think we're still flavor-wise in the excellent range. So how's the scene there in Fort Wayne for cigars? Like I didn't when I only was there for like I drove down from Chicago, got there late in the evening, went to the hotel, checked in. Then the next day I went straight to like Sweetwater. Oh no, I went to Sweetwater on the way down, and then on the way The next day, I went to Townsend's and then went to the Tenderloin and then drove back to Chicago. So I was only there overnight. So I didn't really get a chance to enjoy the cigar scene there. So how is the cigar scene in Indiana? And for that matter, Angela, how is the cigar scene down in the Carolinas? Like you guys are fairly liberal as far as like cigar world smoking, right? Is that that's my understanding at least? Because I know you guys got those big like JR cigar joints down there. I have been down to the Carolinas in quite a while though. 2017 was the last time I was there. I went down to South Carolina for the eclipse. Drove all the way just outside of Columbia, South Carolina, because I wanted to get into the zone of totality. Found this high school, parked myself. It was awesome. I was all ready. And then just as the eclipse happened, the one spot that I had chosen suddenly had some cloud cover. So I got like obscured cloud cover for the eclipse. I was a little bit disappointed, but it still was pretty amazing. Devin says that if you like lemon, you like Pepsi. And if you like orange, you like Coke. Oh, I guess I do like orange more than lemon. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. I haven't thought about that. Alistair says that we have a few local shops that are solid. Rudy's has an excellent selection of the higher end, harder to find sticks. Oh, awesome. They're the only place to get Roma Craft in town. They sell online even. Oh, Rudy's. Oh, I'll have to look that up. That sounds interesting. How are the prices? Pretty good? I'm not very good at buying stuff online. Like, I'm really bad at it. I always like to buy local. I like to go to shops and meet people and support businesses and get to know the staff. And, like, I'm really bad at Amazon. Like, all my friends order Amazon. Like, I don't have Amazon Prime. I just wait. Like, if you're just a regular Amazon customer, if you spend $35, you can get free shipping. You have to wait 3 to 5 days, but you'll get still free shipping. So I like that. But I'm really bad at like I've got a cart on my Amazon account, and I just put stuff in it, and then I never pull the trigger because I'm just like, oh, I'll look for it here. It's really terrible. It's like I want to buy some air filters, like 20 by 20 air filters, like the ones you put in your house, but the higher like rated MERV 13 filters. So I have a box of 5 of them in my Amazon account now, and it's like $75, and I keep thinking I'm gonna buy it, and then I just never do. I'm like and then I'll add something else, and then it jumps up to like I'll add a few more things. It'll be like $150. I'm like, I don't feel like spending that money. I'll wait. Alistair says has to run. Oh man, glad you good. We're glad you found us, man. Glad you come join us. We're here every Thursday night, every Thursday 8 p.m. Eastern. But Rudy's is pretty standard price. They don't mark up too bad. That's good. That's good to hear. All right, I think we're at a point where we can look at the final scoring. Like I said, I think flavor-wise is excellent, still excellent. I think very good plus for the body, still 8.75, so very consistent in that respect. Now, burn and draw, I think burn and draw has been excellent the whole time. Like we've not had any things go out, so I'm going to say 9. Consistency, I don't think the cigar has been consistent in the fact that it would be static. It has been consistently very good to excellent. It has increased throughout the smoke. So I'm going to say also, I'm going to give it an excellent of 9. And then overall, I'm going to have to say 8.75. Which I think, if I'm correct in my calculations, I'll double check it later, but Looks like it's 86.75, so a very, very good score. Which puts it in some of the best cigars that we've had this year. For sure, not as great as the 20th anniversary from my father, but still very, very good. Very enjoyable. $35 though for the MSRP. I would say that it's probably worth trying. I don't know if I would necessarily run out. Say you got to run out and try it right away. But a very, very good smoke though, nonetheless. Nonetheless, very good. All right, I guess that's going to be it for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to be back next week with the beginning of 2025. We're going to be smoking the Tatuaje 20th anniversary cigar. So, Devin, if you have another one, prepare that for next week. Or if anybody can get it, 20th anniversary Tatuaje. We're going to do that next week. And we're also going to recap and see what we did, how we did for cigars in 2024. Look at the rankings and see which was our cigar of the year. I know there's so many people do the cigar of the year. It feels kind of like funny to do that. But all right, so thank you very much for tuning in. I'm always very honored that you spend some time with me on Thursday nights for our Thursday night hang. So thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in for the last 4 years. Very awesome of you. I really do appreciate that. Back again next week with the 20th anniversary Tatuaje and a whole new year of cigar smoking and coffee. Mom, always good to see you. Brian, Tony, everybody at Faders North, always good to have you. Angela, thanks for tuning in. Devin, down in Florida, good to have you as well. Steven out there in Arizona, have a wonderful evening and see you guys next time.